The wind tasted of scorched copper. Dry, bitter, and metallic like the breath of a dying machine. Cale moved carefully through the maze of wrecked towers and shattered satellites, each step measured. His boots crunched across sand-buried circuitry, the ghosts of forgotten wars humming faintly beneath the dust. Twin moons hung low overhead, one swollen and pink, the other thin and white as bone, their glow casting long, eerie shadows over the scrapyard. He didn't mind the silence. Silence meant no one else had beaten him here. Just another dead moon, another derelict tech field, another chance to salvage parts that might feed him for another week. Cale was good at two things, fixing broken machines, and staying unnoticed. That was why he was still alive after all this time. Not because he was brave. Not because he was strong. But because he knew when to run and what was worth holding on to. He crouched near a rusted drone carriage and pulled a sensor relay from beneath a collapsed beam. The piece was still warm. Strange. He looked around. Then he heard it. A sound like breath caught in a wire, wet and electric, too organic to be scrap noise, too faint to be a threat. Cale froze. Another sound, a whimper. High-pitched, soft, like a child's voice filtered through static. He slipped his volt blade free, its hilt warm in his palm, and moved toward the sound with practiced caution. Silence could be a trap. He'd seen too many scavengers fall for that mistake. But this was no trap. Tucked between two scorched transport engines, half buried in wires and ash, was a child. No older than 5. She was small, barely more than a shadow, her skin a pale lavender that shimmered like frost. Her body twitched every few seconds, sending little sparks flying from the ports in her back. Cybernetic interface rings glowed dimly along her spine. Her eyes, glass-like and flickering, locked on him. She tried to speak. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. Cale knelt slowly, sheathing his blade. "You're hurt," he said gently. She flinched. He saw her fingers twitch, like she was trying to defend herself, but didn't know how. "I'm not here to hurt you." His voice wasn't warm, it hadn't been in years, but it was steady. Calm. The kind of tone he used when coaxing power from dying circuits. She whimpered again. "Help, hurts, too loud." Cale opened his tool satchel, pulled out a small handheld scanner, and swept it over her chest. The readings made his stomach drop. Someone had hacked her neural core. Tried to shut her down from the inside. This wasn't damage. This was execution. "Bastards," he muttered. She didn't react to the curse. Her eyes were fluttering now. "Stay with me," he said, reaching for a diagnostic patch. He pressed it gently to her chest. "Don't sleep yet." A shadow fell over them. Cale turned fast, drawing his blade again, but she was already there. A woman. Tall. Regal in a way that didn't match the dirt and rust around them. Her skin glimmered like quicksilver, smooth but streaked with scars. Her hair, white and bound in intricate cords, spilled over her shoulders. Her eyes were red, not with rage, but with something ancient. Exhaustion. Defiance. Sorrow. She didn't flinch at the blade. "Put it down," she said. Her voice was low and melodic. Not a command. Not a plea. Cale hesitated. "She's my daughter," the woman continued. She dropped to her knees beside the child and touched her forehead to the girl's. "My name is Nyari." "Cale. You're human. Last I checked. You're a fixer. Your hands are unbonded." He narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" "You can repair minds. Not just machines. I fix tech, not. Please." She looked at him then, truly looked. And there was no seduction in her voice, no manipulation, just desperation carved deep into the lines of her face. "I don't know how else to save her." Cale blinked, heart tightening. He hated this part. The way people begged when they had nothing left. It reminded him of his own childhood. Of hands outstretched, unanswered. He exhaled and nodded. Okay. He set the scanner down and opened the emergency repair kit. Wires, transdermal ports, neural stabilizers. He worked in silence, scanning the child's ports again. Her name is Thini, Nyari said softly. It means light between shadows. Pretty name. They wanted to grind her. Kale paused. What? Our empire doesn't permit emotional variance. Especially not in empath bloodlines. Empath? We were bred to serve. To please. To bond. But not to feel. Not truly. Kale looked down at the child. Her tiny hands twitched. The rings on her back were seared and cracked. And she was born, different. Yes. She cried when she was born. She reached for me. She smiled. Kale's fingers tightened around the wire in his hand. They said she was defective. They ordered her erased. I ran. And the others? Dead. Or still serving. I don't know anymore. He connected a pulse sync wire to Thini's spinal port. Her body jerked slightly. Steady, little spark, Kale murmured. Nyari watched him like he was a miracle she didn't dare believe in. She had offered him her body once, he saw it in her posture, in the shame she wore like armor, but he had refused. And that, more than anything, seemed to confuse her. You didn't take what I offered, she whispered. Wasn't mine to take. Most men wouldn't say that. I'm not most men. Silence passed between them, broken only by the soft clicks of the calibrator. Thini's breathing steadied. Her eyes flickered open. Mama? Nyari gasped, clutching her daughter to her chest. I'm here, my light, she whispered. Kale sat back, wiped sweat from his brow. She's stable. But not for long. She needs power. Clean neural input. Rest. Nyari looked at him, tears streaking her cheeks. You saved her. I bought her time. But why? He didn't answer at first. Then, because someone has to. Above them, the wind howled through the ruins. But for a moment, in the space between dust and metal, there was peace. The warmth of Kale's coat still clung to Thini's skin. Nyari knelt in the cold dark of the tunnel, holding her daughter's hand while the human sat a few feet away, guarding the entrance with that strange, mechanical calm. Above them, the marketplace had fallen quiet again, though she knew it wouldn't last. Their scent would draw them. The hunters were coming. It was always the same. Survival, flight, hiding. No rest. Never rest. But tonight, something was different. Her daughter lived. Thini was still breathing. It should not have been possible. She watched the way Kale moved, precise, efficient, yet careful, always careful. His hands bore tiny cuts and scars, not from battle, but from years of work. He hadn't even flinched when she offered herself, hadn't looked at her like a commodity. He saw her daughter as a child, not an object. Nyari could barely remember the last time anyone had looked at her with anything close to kindness. She needs energy, Kale said quietly, not turning around. I gave her a short charge, but it won't last through tomorrow. That core of hers, it's complex. Someone installed a limiter to trap her consciousness. They called it a silencer, Nyari replied. You let them do that to her? I didn't have a choice, she said, her voice hollow. Kale didn't speak. Didn't look at her. She didn't blame him. I was made to carry bloodlines, she said after a moment. Designed. Engineered. My body wasn't my own, it belonged to the council. I was called a pleasure seed. Not even a name. Just a function. Still, Kale said nothing. But his grip on the metal pipe he used as a weapon tightened. When Thini was born, I was supposed to deliver her and walk away. Let the processors screen her for genetic flaws. If she passed, they would raise her in the emotionless chambers. If not, disposal. Her throat clenched. But she did something no one had done before. She cried. Not in pain. In fear. Longing. She looked at me and reached out. With her mind. Kale turned then, eyes dark in the tunnel's dim light. You felt it? Yes. And for the first time in my life, I didn't obey. I took her and ran. They let you escape? No, she said. They were too arrogant. They believed no one born in the breeding towers would dare disobey. Kale exhaled slowly. And now they're hunting you both. Not just us. What she is, what she feels, it terrifies them. It makes her real. Not a soldier. Not a product. Just, a child. Kale sat down beside her. For a moment, he just looked at Thini, her tiny body curled against Nyari's side. You risked everything, he said softly. I had nothing left to lose. You still had yourself. Nyari smiled bitterly. I didn't think I counted. You do now. His words shouldn't have hit so hard. You don't know what I've done, she whispered. Who I've served. What I've let them do to me. Kale met her gaze. Not with pity. Not even with forgiveness. With understanding. You were surviving. I was obeying. No, he said. You were surviving. Nyari swallowed hard. No one had ever said that to her before. Not even the rebels who had tried to recruit her. They had only seen her as a useful escapee, a symbol to parade, never a person. Kale wasn't like them. She reached out, slowly, unsure why her hand moved. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe the cold. Maybe the ache in her chest that had no name. Her fingers brushed his wrist. He didn't flinch. Thank you, she said. For saving her. For staying. You don't need to thank me. I do. You didn't owe us anything. You still don't. You think kindness needs a contract. Where I'm from, yes. He looked at her, through her. Where I'm from, he said, we try to remember what it means to be human. Even when it hurts. A long silence fell. Nyari leaned her head back against the wall. The tunnel air was musty, cold, filled with the scent of rust and decayed metal. Still better than the breeding halls. Still better than the cold tiles of the silken chambers. I used to dream of skies, she said softly. Back in the towers. They wouldn't let us outside unless we were chosen for a pleasure bond. But sometimes I'd see the moons through the glass. I imagined what it might feel like to run beneath them, to laugh, to choose. Kale tilted his head. And now? I'm still running. But at least it's my choice. Thini stirred in her sleep, her little fingers clenching in her mother's cloak. Nyari held her close. She'll need more than survival, Kale said. If she's going to live, really live, she'll need safety. A home. There's no such place for us. Maybe not yet. But I've seen systems forgotten by the Empire. I know smugglers. Places they don't patrol. You take us with you. If you'll let me. Nyari didn't answer right away. The idea of trust was foreign. Dangerous. But something in his eyes told her he wasn't offering out of guilt. Or pity. Just, choice. And that meant everything. I don't know how to be anything but what they made me, she whispered. Then let's unmake it. One piece at a time. Her breath caught. You speak like it's easy. It isn't, he said. But I fix broken things. Even when they're afraid to be fixed. Nyari's fingers closed around his hand, not from need. From want. And for the first time in her life, it wasn't shame that followed the touch. It was warmth. Later, she sat near a rusted heat coil while Kale repaired a cracked solar filament. Her hands traced shapes on the slate again, though she wasn't drawing anything specific this time, just motion, soft pressure, chalk dust on fingers. "You're good at fixing things," she said quietly. Kale didn't look up right away. "It's the only thing I've ever really done." "Why?" He glanced at her, then back to the coil. "Because broken things are honest. They don't pretend." Feeny didn't fully understand that. But she felt something move in her chest, like a tiny, curious echo. "Am I broken?" she asked. Kale froze, fingers hovering over the wiring. Nyari turned her head sharply. "You are not broken," she said, her voice firmer than it had ever been. Feeny blinked. Kale sat back, wiping his hands. "Being different isn't broken," he said. "It's just, brave." She looked down at her lap, processing the word. Brave. Was that what her mother had been, too? Was that what running was? "What are you afraid of?" she asked him suddenly. Kale raised an eyebrow. "Everyone's afraid of something," she added. He leaned against the wall beside her, silent for a while. "Then, I guess, I'm afraid of fixing things that don't want to be fixed." "Like me?" "No," he said gently. "Not like you. You don't need fixing. You just need room to grow." She stared at him for a long time. "What if they find us? Then I'll make sure they don't take you. You can't stop the Empire." "Maybe not forever," he said. "But long enough for you to choose who you want to be." And that was the part that stayed with her. He said choose. No one had ever said that to her before. Not the technicians. Not the trainers. Not even the rebels who whispered freedom but never explained what it meant. Choose. She turned back to her slate and drew again. This time she drew the moons. 2 of them, side by side. Different sizes. Different light. But together in the same sky. The days passed like quiet sparks. Not safe, not truly, but calm. Nyari stitched together blankets from scrap fabric. Kale built a stabilizer for Theeny's spinal port so she could walk short distances without collapsing. She followed him sometimes, watching how he touched metal like it was alive, how his tools moved like fingers in song. He didn't treat her like a weapon. He didn't speak to her like a machine. He asked questions. He listened. Once, she sat beside him while he repaired a cracked lens. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Some parts. Trees. Clean water. Music that wasn't made by drones." "Why did you leave?" He hesitated. "Because they stopped caring about broken people. Only wanted things shiny and fast." Feeny looked down at her hands. "I'm not shiny." "No," Kale said, "you're better. You shine from the inside." Her face warmed at that. Was that pride? Was that what it felt like? But the warmth couldn't last. They came again. Not soldiers, yet. Not drones. Just shadows at the edge of the junkyard. Whispers of footsteps that weren't Kale's. Faint tracking beacons that pinged once and disappeared. They were closing in. One night, Kale came back from a supply run with blood on his knuckles. "Ambushed?" Nyari asked, stepping forward. "Almost," he said. "One scout. He won't report back. We have to move." "Not yet," he said. "I've got a contact. Smuggler. Name cell she owes me. She can get us off Moon. But we've got one shot." Nyari clenched her jaw. "And if they catch us before then?" Kale looked at Thini. They won't. Later that night, Thini sat awake, knees pulled to her chest. Her spinal coil buzzed faintly. She could feel fear curling in the room like smoke. Not hers. Her mother's. Kale's. It wrapped around them. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She stood and walked slowly to where Kale sat on the floor, checking a signal disruptor. I heard what you said, she told him. He looked up. You'll protect us. I will. Even if you're scared. Especially then, he said. She knelt beside him. You don't fix things because they're broken. You fix them because you don't want them to be alone. Kale blinked. Her voice was quiet. That's how I feel. When you talk to me. Not alone. He smiled, just barely. She leaned gently against his side. Can I stay here tonight? Just until I fall asleep? Of course. And so she did. For the first time in her memory, she slept beside someone who didn't plug her into a machine. Someone who made her feel real. Thini woke to the sound of quiet breathing and soft tools clicking. Kale hadn't moved from beside her. He sat, legs folded, leaning slightly back against a pile of rusted ship plating. The glow from a power cell beside him lit up one half of his face, warm and orange. He looked tired, older than before, but peaceful. Like he'd spent years fighting something and had finally stopped, if only for a little while. She sat up, blanket slipping from her shoulders. Her back ached, but not the way it used to. The pain didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like healing. He looked over at her and offered a small nod. Sleep okay? She nodded. Any dreams? Yes. He waited. There was a sky, she whispered. Not this one. Different. Bluer. I was lying on grass. And my spine didn't buzz. My hands were clean. Mother was laughing. And, you were playing music. Something strange. Not like machine sounds. Kale smiled. Could have been an old record. I have a few stored on my pad. Is that what dreams are? She asked. Other lives? Maybe. Or maybe they're just wishes with pictures. I liked it. Then keep it. No one can take it. Her chest felt tight again, but not like before. Not like panic. Something good. Something she didn't have a word for. Do I get to keep this too? She asked, softer now. Keep what? You. He didn't speak. She didn't need him to. His silence wasn't cold. It was full. Later, her mother wrapped her arms around her, pulling her close. You're stronger today, Nyari said. I think I am. You're speaking more. I have more to say. Nyari smiled, brushing her fingers gently through her daughter's hair. I don't know what happens next, Nyari whispered. I don't know where we'll go. Or what we'll lose. But I know this, what you are, Thini, is not a mistake. I was scared to be different, Thini said. I was too. They sat like that for a long time, mother and daughter wrapped in each other's arms, while Kale worked quietly nearby, like the stars outside could wait. They left that night. Kale had mapped the escape route, an old sewer line, buried beneath two collapsed docking bays, leading into a collapsed transit shaft. They traveled light. A pack of power cells. The disruptor. Nyari's stitched-together cloak. The chalkboard slate, Thini refused to leave it behind. The stars overhead blinked dimly, as if watching. As they passed through the tunnel, Thini reached out and took Kale's hand. He didn't flinch. He just closed his fingers around hers. Her mother saw it. And for once, she didn't speak. Because she didn't need to. When they reached the outer ridge, where the ruins opened into the scrublands beyond, Kale slowed and crouched low, scanning the horizon with a handheld scope. "She'll be waiting for us," he said. "Sell she owes me. She has a ship." "Is she dangerous?" Nyari asked. "Yes. But she has rules. And she's not the Empire." Nyari nodded. "Then we go." "Not yet," Kale said, voice suddenly sharp. Thini stiffened. "What is it?" Nyari asked. Kale turned slowly. His voice was quiet. Measured. "They're already here." Just over the next ridge, scout lights moved in tight formation. Silent. 3 of them, small drones, triangular and silent, gliding low to the ground. They hadn't seen them yet. But they would. Kale turned to Nyari. "You take Thini. Go around the south cliff. There's a dried stream bed. Crawl through it, quiet. Meet me at the marker." "You can't. I'll distract them." Nyari looked at him, truly looked. He was afraid. And he was still going. She didn't try to stop him. Instead, she turned to her daughter, knelt, and pressed her forehead to hers. "Follow me," she whispered. "No matter what. You live. You keep living." Thini nodded, her hands trembling. Then Nyari took her hand. They vanished into the dark. Kale sprinted toward the western ridge, flashlight blinking, disruptor in hand. He tossed a heat pod into the open, then another. The lights flared bright red. The drones turned. Chased. And Kale ran like hell. Not to escape. But to protect. Later, when they reunited near the smuggler's outpost, blood dried on his arm and one side of his coat burned, Thini ran to him without hesitation. She hugged him. Not like a child unsure of boundaries. But like a child who had chosen someone to belong to. He knelt, breathing hard, and held her tight. Her mother watched, eyes full. But said nothing. Because that moment needed no words. In the days that followed, as they waited for the ship to arrive, Thini spent hours drawing again. This time, she didn't draw machines. She drew 3 figures, standing beneath 2 suns. One tall. One silver. One small. She labeled them with lines. Mother. Kale. Me. She wasn't broken anymore. She wasn't hunted. She was held. And for the first time in her short, strange life. She was home. They told him once that guilt was a myth. Varen had believed them. The Empire taught you to feel nothing. To obey without hesitation. To purge empathy from your mind like a virus. The cleaner your conscience, the better your service. But Varen's conscience had never been clean. Not since the first time he saw what the grinders did to the defectives. Not since he watched Nyari run with her newborn daughter in her arms. He should have killed her that day. He'd been standing in the observation dome, rifle sight trained on her back. One pull. One breath. She would have fallen. But then the child turned. And her eyes. Varen had seen soldiers bred without thought, minds sharpened to kill on command. He'd watched empaths laugh at executions, feeling nothing. But that child had looked back. And her eyes were afraid. Not blank. Not programmed. Afraid. That was the first fracture. The second came months later, when they sent him to track her down. His orders were clear: terminate the fugitive. Recover or destroy the defect. Bring back the remains for analysis. He followed their trail through 12 sectors, half a dozen scorched trade zones, 2 dead moons, and 1 collapsed Empire lab. And every time he got close, he found the same thing. Survival. Not resistance. Not rebellion. Just a woman holding her daughter's hand, running through fire. And something in him cracked further. Now he stood at the edge of a ridge, a battered lens scope in one hand, watching them move toward the smugglers' outpost. Nyari. Thini. And, the human. He didn't recognize the man. But he recognized the way Nyari walked beside him, not guarded, not ashamed. Equal. And the way the girl held the human's hand, Varen had no words for that. He should report their location. He should finish what he started. Instead, he powered down the beacon and slipped the communicator into his belt. The final fracture. He found them again 2 nights later, after the failed drone chase. He didn't interfere. He watched from a distance as Kale limped into the outpost, burns across one arm, the girl clinging to his chest like he was oxygen. Varen's fingers hovered near the grip of his sidearm. He didn't draw. He didn't blink. He felt something cold twist in his gut. Envy. Not for freedom. Not for love. But for the rightness of their bond. The way they moved like they had already chosen each other. The way the girl smiled even through fear. Varen had worn the Empire's crest for 21 cycles. He had executed targets from orbit, silenced voices that dared speak the word choice. But never once had anyone looked at him the way that girl looked at the human. With trust. With hope. Later, while they slept in a back chamber of the outpost, Varen broke into their camp and left a sealed capsule near the entrance. A small offering. Spinal coolant. Enough for a week. And a note etched into the side with an old thermal pen. You were never the enemy. Not to me. He didn't wait to see if they found it. He just disappeared into the wind.